Hello and welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au and I have a really wonderful show for everyone today. It's super exciting because I have a really good friend and a wonderful pianist, Charlotte Tang, who's going to be joining us. She's currently doing her doctorate on Schubert's expressive markings, especially in the context of historical period pianos and what they're capable of. She's actually coming to us from the Banff Centre, and right behind her is a historical period piano. We're going to see what they're capable of, the pedals, as well as parts of her exploration in Schubert's expressive markings and pedal markings. It's going to be so amazing, and we have so much to learn from this incredible interview. And this is because we, as Virtual Concert Halls, love to serve musicians and music lovers out there by exploring the beauty and the genius behind some of the greatest music we know, as well as the instruments that play it. And it is because it's our passion to be connecting musicians and audiences in real-time musical performances and live programs from around the globe. Hello and welcome to Virtual Concert Halls. This is an incredible show that we have. This is probably our first live interview for the year, January 2024. So Happy New Year for all those who are joining us. Before we get into our marvelous guests for today, I want to talk to you a little bit about our upcoming season. We have an incredible array of shows that we have planned, as well as performances, live performances in Carnegie Hall. On top of that, we have live auditions. We actually have a session of 3-4 days of live auditions for the co-orchestra. This coming weekend, starting on Friday up until Monday, there will be shows. There will be auditions. You get to hear live performances of musicians from around the world playing to compete to play with orchestra. And these orchestras come to us from Egypt, from the Czech Republic, from the US. And so these are all amazing things that are happening in our season. And we're excited also to have Carnegie Hall auditions for those who want to play in Carnegie Hall. These are all coming up. And this is a quick video that I want to show you so you can have a look to see what's in store for this upcoming season of 2023 and 2024. So as you can see, there are so many different things we have in store, from co-orchestra auditions where you get to play concerti. Musicians get to play concerti around the world with leading orchestras and amazing conductors. We also have 4 different Carnegie Hall events that are already booked, by the way, so that these events can nourish and be a part of a musician's career. Being able to play in Carnegie Hall, the Viol Recital Hall, is a real privilege, and I actually did it in November last year, and it's just an awesome feeling to be able to show music on stage. And not only did I play on stage, but I also play with an orchestra, and this just fuels for musicians and music lovers a great sense of joy that music brings to not just the performer, but also to the audience. Leading up throughout the month and throughout the season, whenever we don't have live auditions, we also have daily music and musician shows. What we do there is we interview guest artists with musicians, judges, music promoters, and all different parts of our organization, as well as educators, publishers, media managers, artist managers, and many others, so that they can share their insights, share their research, especially today, to share their observations about the industry, about the world that they live in terms of where they're at, especially as a young musician, or perhaps from a more experienced side of the world. And this helps musicians and music lovers to really navigate what is generally a very confusing sometimes and a broad, various world out there. And today I have the incredible privilege of interviewing Charlotte Tang, who is coming to us from Canada. She is currently at the Banff Centre, and she is a wonderful pianist and a wonderful human being who is doing her doctorate at the University of Toronto. She combines her passion of 19th century music and historical instruments by studying the interactions between Schubert's pedal indications and his soft dynamics. She recently presented her findings, and I was there for this amazing lecture recital in Toronto, and she is excited to showcase her work about this at the Banff Centre in January 2024, which is right now where she's coming to us from, which is focused on the realization of Schubert's pedal indications on historical instruments and how that translates to modern pianos. As a performer, Charlotte has been actively performing on both the modern and historical pianos. Recent highlights include performances at Cornell University, Indiana University, and the 2023 conference of the Westfield Center of Historical Keyboard Studies. Charlotte is a doctoral candidate in piano performance at the University of Toronto, and before relocating to Canada, she worked with Roberto Plano and Elizabeth Wright on historical piano at Indiana University, and Jeffrey Cohen at the Manhattan School of Music. What a privilege it is to have you on the show, and let's welcome Charlotte. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So you coming to us from the Banff Centre.
Yes, yeah.
Tell me about the piano that's behind you, what your time is like there, how cold it is, and what's going on in your world over there right now.
Right. So it was negative 50, 40 something
Five
last week.
zero, negative five
Yeah,
zero. Holy crap.
yeah. But now it's much warmer. Today it's around negative 17 or something.
Oh
So
yeah, much
it's
warmer.
it's
Yes,
been
of course.
really it's been really nice. I can show you a little bit outside. I'm not sure if you can see it perfectly,
Wow,
but it's super pretty. This
that's
is my
fantastic.
practice studio. I have two
So you have a modern
pianos.
piano and you have a historical piano. Tell us a bit about the
Mhm.
piano you have behind you.
Yeah, so this is a Regia Graph replica. That means it's a modern copy of a 19th century piano.
Okay.
And Graph piano is a Viennese piano which won two gold medals in the World Exhibition
Wow.
30 years apart. So that sort of showcases how good he is for the entire time of his career. Now, this piano is very special because, let me just go down a little. You can see there are
Oh.
four pedals,
Mm.
and these four pedals are quite different from what we have on the modern piano.
Yeah.
Um, the left one that you see is a shift action, which is basically what we have called a soft pedal on the modern piano. So that's like your left pedal. But the difference is that this one goes to a true one string. So when you're doing it on the modern piano, it goes just two strings. You go from playing three strings to two strings. But for this one, you can go from playing three strings to two strings and to one strings.
All
So
on
it's
one
offering
pedal?
a lot. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, so it offers a lot more like dynamic possibilities.
Yeah.
And the one in the middle is actually a double moderator, the second one to the left. And the one beside that is a moderator. So a moderator means there is a piece of felt being inserted between the hammers and the strings. So when you're playing it, it sounds a little muffled. Versus for the shift action, there isn't anything inserted. It's just playing fewer strings. So you don't really change the color of it, but it's just a little softer. And then the double moderator would mean that you have two pieces of felt. And then lastly on the right is the damper pedal that we all know of.
How does I mean I'm sure you're going to tell us more about how this all works, but how does a piece of felt go in between the strings and the hammers? Like, is it just somehow inserted and then retracted? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so if you press the pedal down, it would slide forward. It would go, say the felt was here, the hammers were here. If you press the pedal down, the felt would go forward like this, and the hammer would just stop playing like that.
Oh, so it's not a
The,
very long piece of felt. It just sort of is there and it just kind of moves in and out.
it's
And
like
then
a
if
little
it's
tongue.
and then if it's two, then is it there's a there's a second one on top or lower that kind of also goes out?
Yeah, it's usually lower if I remember correctly. But then they just go out together.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. Okay, all right. So how do you like this piano? How do you like the sound? What is it like to you?
It is amazing. It sounds a little different from the modern piano. And the temperament is sometimes different as well, because on the modern piano we usually have equal temperament, but on the 4-day piano we can actually do different things. Say sometimes we can do velocity, or if you would prefer, you can even try and see if you can get it to mean tone or like other more adventurous temperaments, and that will give a different
Wow.
flavor in the keys.
That's fast. And I mean, for our audience and for myself, there just is. Are there all 88 keys on this one too?
No, this one is a little, it's a little
Okay, good.
smaller.
Okay, good. I asked then.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a 6.5 octaves. So it goes from C to G on top. It's around one octave less on the top.
And is this very close in terms of the octave and the way it's constructed to Schubert's piano? Like I know it's not the same, but is it more which composer would we most associate this kind of piano most with, I guess?
Um, yeah, so actually Schubert is closely associated with this.
Okay.
And I also play early Schumann and late Beethoven on the same instrument. Graf is a maker who was there for Beethoven. Beethoven was always like, Graf, can you please fix up my pianos? They're not working. I need you. And then for Schubert, his ties with Graf actually started when he was a child. It's just because his cousin actually works in Graf's workshop. So Schubert gets to just wander and like try all his pianos and play his heart out. Um, yeah, so that's basically how this came about. And then for Graf, he had a pretty long career. He's still active around 1840s. And then he finally closed his business at his prime in 1842. So Schumann, Kalkbrenner, these are the people who really enjoyed Graf's piano. And even Chopin, when he was going to Vienna, he actually played on one of Graf's instruments and he actually really enjoyed it.
How would you characterize the graph sound? Is there a graph sound?
That's a good question. I would say for the Graf piano, every single one has a different character, and
Mm.
even every register has a different character. Say for the middle register, say from around middle C up and down an octave, it's a very warm register.
Mm.
But if you go further down, it's gonna sound a little buzzy, a little nasal. It can sound a little threatening as well if you're playing something a little louder. For the top, it's a lot more teeny, it's a lot more piercing, and also the sound goes away pretty quickly. So it's always like, and then it's done.
So like a modern hall is not as is not suited for the modern hall, which is really big, and this would be perfect for like a salon or a smaller room, a with good acoustics, obviously, and this just works very
Yeah.
intimately, right?
Yes, I agree. Yeah, completely.
Wow. Okay, so before I know you have a wonderful presentation for us, but I would love to start off with some music actually. You prepared the whole Schubert G major sonata in your recent doctoral lecture recital, and I want to play a little bit of excerpt of it. But before that, can you share with us the piano that you played on, which I know is a historical piano?
Mhm.
Could you also share with us your experience playing a Schubert because most of your practice, I assume, was probably on a modern instrument, and then giving a little bit away of this, but I know you only had like a day to really work on this historical period instrument before
Yeah.
performing it. So before we play this video, could you share with us a little bit about what happened and how you found it?
Yeah, so my journey with the historical piano actually started during my master's at Temple University, which was 8 years ago almost. It's been a while.
Wow.
I didn't start with the graph at first. I started with the Volta piano, which is basically piano at Mozart's time.
Could
And
you repeat that? Volta piano?
so So or like water,
Oh,
Walther.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
Volta. Hmm.
So so it's very different because they don't have pedals. It was a knee lever, and sometimes it's a split knee lever too. So a knee lever means it's like a damper pedal, except you're using it by like pushing your knee up, so you're
I
pedaling like
see.
this, which is a little
Wow.
bit of a workout for abs.
Yeah. A good
Um,
core workout.
it is. Yeah, and it's funny because sometimes it's a split. That means you can only pedal the left-hand side or you can pedal the whole keyboard of the piano. Um, and they also sometimes have a moderator that you pull out. It's like a little knob, like
Wow.
how a harpsichord is. So that's how I started. It was performance practice class, and we had to play something every week. Um, I really enjoyed it. So when I get to Indiana University, I was also doing some harpsichord on the side, like when I was at Temple. So I was
Mm.
like, oh, I really like all these historical instruments. I just like the sound of it. And then so when I moved to Indiana, I was like, hey, like, I really want to do this. So I talked to Professor Wright and she gladly took me on. I'm really grateful for that. And we worked on the graph. We worked on a lot of like, say, Beethoven bagatelles. We worked on the Opus 101 Sonata in A,
Mm.
and then we worked on a lot of different Schubert. So I always knew that I want to keep going with the historical piano. And naturally, when I went into my doctoral studies, I was like, hey, like I really want to put this into my thesis. I was really interested in comparing between the modern and historical instrument. So it was almost like I was taking my experience from before and started preparing for this recital. And when I'm in Banff actually right now, I'm gonna just focus on how different the instruments are and how we can realize the ideas that we learned from the historical instrument. So as I was preparing for the recital, I actually had a water piano that I could practice on.
Oh,
But
good. Okay.
obviously, yeah, it was very different because the range is even smaller. So that one is around 5 or 5.5 octaves, but this
Wow.
one is 6.5. So sometimes you'll be running out of notes. And the
Yeah.
pedals are also working slightly differently. This is a Viennese instrument, meaning for the Volta especially, it's a single escapement. So that means you don't have to double check, and then when you're playing repeated notes, it's repeating a little slower than you like it to be on the
Wow.
modern piano. So I first practiced on on the water piano for maybe a month or two. So it's slightly easing into that historical sound already. And then when Dr. Brightman from Oberlin brought up his Graf McNulty copy, it's slightly different in terms of how the pedals are laid out because everyone actually hook up these pedals differently. And interestingly, according to Tom Baggin, Beethoven's pianos, they usually have the damper pedal on the left, actually, which is very different
Oh,
from what we have right now. But yeah, but that's my journey.
wow. Amazing. That's really cool. So we're gonna listen to you a little bit about the
Yes,
of
yeah.
this, and can you just before we play this video, can you show us, tell us why you chose this sonata? What drew you to the G major, which I love, by the way. I think it's one
Yeah.
of his most amazing pieces of music.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I chose it. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah,
And I always wanted to play on the forte piano or on the historical piano. So this was the perfect opportunity to do that.
wonderful. Okay, well, let's have a listen to this clip of your Schubert Sonata in G major.
Thank you.
Wow, that was really beautiful. It's really wonderful to hear it again because I was actually there at the performance,
Yeah.
and oh, it was just so beautiful. Really, it's like so it's such a has such an expressive tone, I think, and you play it so beautifully. And I think we get used to the sound of the modern instruments, so at first you kind of
Mhm.
have to adjust your ears to it. But once you do, I find it just resonates so and glows and the music speaks so beautifully, and I guess because of its thinner kind of sound and
Right.
timbre, you hear a lot more of the details and the voicing. You don't have to work so hard to voice different yeah,
Yeah.
what do you think of it now that you're hearing it for the as an audience member now of this performance?
I don't know. It's always hard to listen back at your own tapes and have an
Of course.
opinion to it just because you're like, oh, like there are many ideas that I thought about, and oh, maybe that came across, maybe that didn't come across. But I just start to appreciate how the sound of the instrument was, how intimate,
mm,
and
mm.
also how there were a lot of different colors coming out of it.
I find you don't have I mean, this is probably your credit to your playing too, but I found that it's not immediately obvious to me that you have to work too hard to create a singing, beautiful sound. With the modern piano, you have to work a little bit with weight of
Yeah.
the hand and arms to create more of a
Mhm.
cantabile sound. What
Yes.
was it like?
Yeah.
Is that am I accurate in saying that you just have to play it and it sort of much more easily creates
Yeah.
that beautiful sound?
Yes, so this is a very interesting part of the conversation that I used to have with my forte piano teacher all the time because she's always telling me to just trust the piano. You don't need to really do anything to it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just so nervous. Like, I don't make the most perfect sound. But what I realized in my journey is there is a lot of different technique when we're playing the historical instrument because of
Hmm.
how it was built differently and say, for instance, the pedal that I was sort of using in this excerpt, especially in the first minute or so, it was triple piano. So I was using I think I was using the shift action when we started out. And
Oh.
it's almost like, oh, because we were using this pedal, um, we have to sort of adjust how we play in our fingers as well. And it's also partly, oh, like because the damping isn't as perfect as a modern piano, you'll still hear a little bit of the residue sound after you like release your hands and release
Mm.
the pedal. So oftentimes the damper pedal actually needed to be released a little before the harmony was finished. Say maybe this piece for the last eighth note of the bar is already up at that point. So there are like many little things of adjustments. And then for in terms of like arm finger technique, um, we usually release to the palm.
Mm.
So sometimes when you have slurs, you'll be doing stuff like this
Mm-hmm.
instead
Mm-hmm.
of doing this, which we will do on the modern piano. So there are just little adjustments,
So you don't
but
have to
most of
use
the
the big muscles as much. It's more the more little
yeah,
muscles.
it's more like this,
So
like
it's
a cat.
very there's so many things we could talk about, and I wish we could even spend a whole episode on talking about the modern technique versus the historical
Yes,
technique. That would be so cool. But let's talk
yeah.
about a little bit of the you prepared some slides for presentation for us, and I'm really
Hmm.
grateful because this is going to be really cool. And let's show a little bit of the first
Yeah.
slide, which is just to pedal or not to pedal. And could you guide us through the this slide and maybe the next starting from the next slide.
Yeah, so this is actually my dissertation topic.
Okay, wonderful.
Because we have four different pedals. How do we use them, and do we
Yeah.
actually use them? Say since 1839, Czerny sort of written down in his treatise and be like, hey, just use your fingers. You don't really need all these pedals. And if you look at this slide, how we have the modern and historical piano side by side, you realize
Yeah.
that the historical one is slightly smaller, slightly
Yes.
shorter in terms of length,
And more
and
brown.
they're also
Yeah. And
yeah,
the
most
music
of the
stand.
time.
The music stand
Yes.
is it's not a big block of wood.
No, it's not. It's such a highlight. And sometimes you see a cover over the strings. It's just because that helps it resonate a little better.
Oh.
And obviously, there are four pedals down there. Um, we sort of went through what they are. For the modern piano, we have the shift action, which is not it's not going as far as an una corda all the time, although we
Yeah,
call it like that.
yeah.
The middle pedal is a sostenuto pedal, and then the
Uh-huh.
right is a damper. But for the historical piano, actually, as I was mentioning earlier,
Yeah.
we have a much more liberal way of deciding where the pedals are. Some people like to put the damper pedal on the left, just like how it was in Beethoven's time.
Oh,
Also, because this piano is bigger, so it allows for more four hands repertoire.
cool.
That
Okay.
might also be why the pedal is on the left. And as you can see in these slides, the historical piano, which is on the right hand side, is strict strung. And there are also some different colors of strings, brass strings, and then for the modern piano, it's always cross strung. It's much higher string tension, so it's capable of a much bigger sound.
Right.
For the historical piano, is just so much more transparent because the resonances aren't like mingling as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. And the next slide we want to show you're talking about the double escapement through as opposed to the single action, and I'm gonna show that. Um, yeah. Is there also is there also oh, can you tell us a little bit about this the difference between the action then perhaps?
Yeah, so for the single action, basically it just falls right back. The hammer just falls right back after it hits the string. So you wouldn't be able to like repeat the note like in a very short period of time. And
No
it also
debussy
feels
Ravel
much,
for you.
yes, no, totally. Um, yeah, it also feels much lighter because of that. And then the one on your left, which is the modern piano, much
Cool.
bigger sound, much heavier action. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so, and the next slide we have is this.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about this one?
Yeah, so this one I'm basically just showing the different pedals.
Cool. Okay.
The next one though, we'll start hearing different audios of different pedals and you'll
Oh,
see
okay.
exactly how the pedals work.
Excellent. So let's do the next one. And I have it here. Um,
Mhm.
is there should be sound.
One more time. Yeah, so this one is just with the damper pedal. This is Schubert's Impromptu
Yeah.
in A, and from the second set. So yeah, it's just when you have the damper pedal, then it sounds a little richer, it's more resonant, just like how the modern piano is.
Yeah, and I like how it's not like a overly I feel like something with the modern damper pedal, it just feels like it's a big ball of resonance. But this is
Yeah.
it's a lighter, it just kind of floats more, I think. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. And so then we have the shift action.
Yeah.
Let's see. So is there some audio with the shift action as well?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay. Let's put that back on too. And we'll play this as well. Oh, that's the. Oh, let me go back a bit. Let's see. Shift action.
There it is. Oh, I'm sorry.
Nice. So that was and you could really hear the difference. I think it's
Hmm.
really beautiful. Before we talk about it, I think it's better if we just go through the next one, which is the double moderator, and you can tell us a little bit about the difference with that too. Let's have a look back there. Um,
Yeah. So as you can see on the slide, there are two pieces of felt.
mm,
Unfortunately, this one is really, really soft, so it's very hard to capture. Um,
Ah.
and we don't really have an audio for that just because it's not on every single graph piano. Sometimes they
Mm.
have a bassoon stop, which will be coming up right after.
Oh, wow. Okay. And we have audio for that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, okay. Let's have a look at the bassoon stop. I'll change my thing to that. And we go bassoon stop.
Yes. Yeah. So
So
this is
this is
almost
almost
like a
like a mod.
modern extended technique for 19th century. It's a roll of parchment and it would just descend onto the strings. So it's sounding really cool. There are two clips in there. The first one is without the bassoon stop, and the second is with the bassoon stop. And this is Schubert's Happy Farmer.
Let's try
So
it. Let's try this audio
yeah.
thing one more time and see if we can get
Yes.
it with the. There we go. So that's the first
Yeah.
one is with and the without, and the second one is with. Oh, that's
Hmm.
really cool. Wow, it's this buzzing sound. It does sound a
Yes.
bit like the
Yeah.
bassoon. It has this low kind of more nasally sound, but it's a really cool
Yes.
effect.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Wow. Okay. So did you get to experiment? Does this piano behind you doesn't have the bassoon effect, right? But have you
No.
experimented with that bassoon effect before? Okay.
Yeah, so it's usually either a double moderator or a bassoon on the modern replicas. But
Nice.
on the historical ones, if we shall go to the next slide, we sometimes have a percussion stop, which is really exciting. This one is a
Oh.
video, so if you look into the piano, there's a little bell on the side and see if we can get that
Is
working.
this the one where you're playing some Turkish march, perhaps?
Something like that. I actually did a little bit of a Scarlatti on it. It's
Okay,
Scarlatti
okay.
Sonata in C.
Amazing. Okay, so let's try and go back to listen to that. Going to let's see if this works.
Can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. This. Can't remember. What? Okay. This. Wait.
Wow. Okay, so tell us a bit about that.
This one was actually a clip that my friend took as a snapshot when I was trying out the pianos in the Netherlands actually. This is from Bunk's collection
Mm,
and Edwin Bunk. Yeah, this is from Edwin Bunk's collection and it's actually in Enschede,
mm.
Netherlands. If anyone's interested, they have a huge collection of around 20, 30 instruments. And it's going from Kirkman harpsichords and other harpsichords, harpsichords until a
Wow. Okay.
Pleyel, a Rotz. So that was really cool. And this is one of the Viennese instruments that they had, and it has the
That's
percussion stuff, which is really cool.
so I guess what we have to take away from this is that the modern piano is actually kind of boring. It's really, I mean, it's beautiful, it does its purpose, and it's uniform throughout, always three pedals, always that, but
Yes,
it hardly is incorporating any of these effects of a felt, double felt. The only time
yeah,
we have a felt is an upright, and that's like a practice pedal,
yes,
like
yes,
what
yeah.
it must be so interesting to enter this world and discover how creative people were back then with their instrument.
Yeah, it's very interesting because now we are also responding to all these desires of us like getting different sound effects by like having modern extended techniques like plucking in the strings, putting papers on it. So I don't really think now like it's getting more boring, but I would definitely say people in the 19th century were really creative. Um, there were pianos that has up to 8 pedals.
Mm.
That has like splits on say the damper pedal or splits of other um, interesting effects as well. So yeah, in the future, I would love to run into one of those pianos too.
Do you find that mostly in the US and Canada, it's a lot of replicas or people constructing it in the style of and not the real instruments of the time? Or do you find it doesn't matter whether it's a replica or not, as long as it is created in the spirit of the history that it's in?
This is actually a very interesting question, and this is a huge debate that we had in the conference at the Westfield Center last year.
Okay.
Is replicas actually better, or is the
Oh.
original actually better? And obviously, there are original instruments as a carbon copy. So it's just there for us to build a replica from, and they're not really playable anymore.
Oh.
If you ever have the time, I highly recommend Evan Bunk's YouTube channel because he talks about how he restores different pianos. And oftentimes you will see that, oh, there are like parts of the piano that is damaged by, say, carpenter ants or like that is just completely ate up, like for the wood. And there are
Wow.
also parts that are just like eaten up by the mice. So it's just like parts of the felt or parts of the cloth is gone. So it's really a question of what is the instrument for, I guess.
Yeah.
And it does sound very different. It's also going back to what we were saying earlier, um, it's a lot of personal preference or a lot of personal character going into the pianos as well. Say some people like it more mellow,
Hmm.
um, some people like it a little brighter. It's almost like our modern piano. We have different brands, and we
Yeah.
sort of like make the pianos to our likes.
I like to play two more little short clips just to explore a little bit, and this is all
Mhm.
you. Or maybe I think we have three. So let's listen to you try out the Stein piano. Can you tell us a little bit about it before we play the little clip of you trying out the Stein piano?
Yeah, so this one is actually in the Schumann house in Zwickau,
Cool.
and they were just showing me the signed piano that Schumann probably had access to. Um, I forgot the exact details of whether he actually possessed that piano, but yeah, this piano is very interesting because there are 3 pedals, um, and yeah, so let's hear
Okay.
it.
Nice.
Ich wusste nicht, muss ich immer drücken? Ich habe es immer.
Wow. That's beautiful. That's the Wolfstein Sonata, and sort of the second going into the third movement. How was that to play that
Mhm.
there? And yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I was basically just trying the shift action pedal and how it's working with the damper pedal as well. You heard me try a couple different times just because I was trying the different pedal effects. And it was really
Oh.
interesting because Stein is a little smaller than this graph that we have behind us, which this was 6.5. Yeah, so I think that one is a little closer to 6.
It's really cool that like in doing all this research and playing pianos, you really have to
Hmm.
get to know an instrument a
Yes,
new thing. It's familiar but not familiar, and it's like really
yes.
getting to know a new person as opposed to modern instruments, which are all still very different, but in
Hmm.
very nuanced and subtle ways.
Yes, yeah. It's almost like you're opening a box of chocolate every time, and each of them is so different because, say, for Graf, he also changes over his lifetime. It's the most exciting time of piano development, almost that we're just experiencing all these little innovations every couple of years. Say, comparing to the Graf piano and the slide piano that we just have, we already have one extra pedal, and that
Mm.
was maybe just 10 to 15 years apart. Yeah.
That's incredible. And it's amazing that we have these great composers who composed for these
Hmm.
instruments. And we'll spend
Yes.
more time probably next time if you're happy to come on discussing how Schubert does it specifically. But before
Yes.
that, we're gonna hear some Schumann and Chopin to hear what you have to play on it. And let's do the Schumann clip. We'll play this clip first of you playing some Schumann on a historical piano, and then we can talk about it. So let's hear it. That's so beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
That's really nice. What was
Thanks.
it like to play that piece on that instrument and know that somehow it just rings really beautifully without you having to work so hard on voicing or having to use different ways to get the sound and the voices out?
Yeah, so that one is actually a recording from when I was in Indiana, when I was going to IU Bloomington. That was also a much smaller room. So when you hear it, it's almost sounding like it's closer to your ears. And it has such a sweet sound. The piano was just so nice. It was also a Regia Graph. And that one is different because it has a bassoon stop and it doesn't have a double moderator. So
Okay.
when you hear the muffled sound at the end, it was actually the moderator that you're hearing. And
Oh,
I was sprinkling some shift pedal within the song. When you feel it, it's a little softer, but the color doesn't really change. That was it.
no. It's
Yeah.
nice to know that you have more ways to achieve pianissimo than just
Yes.
the shift.
Yes, it really brings different layers to the sound because the
Mm.
moderator almost changes the shade of it. It makes it a little darker. It makes it a little more uncertain, a little hesitant. But then the
Yeah.
shift pedal, just like what Charlie said, is a lasting tone. It's really good for singing through, even when it's soft.
Yeah. Wow, that's really wonderful. Thank you for sharing these with us. This is just, I think this is the first time we've had historical piano playing on our shows or any of in ever really in our history of the
Oh,
virtual concert halls. So this is really, really wonderful. And just to
thank
prove
you.
to everybody that you can also play the modern instrument fantastically, by the way, we're gonna wrap up our show with this Bach Busoni Chaconne, just a little excerpt of it. What's your story behind this piece, and how long have you worked on it? And do you have a little introduction before we play the clip?
Yeah. So this is actually part of my last recital at U of T.
Mm.
It was sort of envisioned as starting with Bach and also ending with Bach, but it's ending with like a transcription that Busoni made. And
Mm.
this is such a canonic piece that we all enjoy with
Yeah.
almost very different effects and everything. And it's just powerful to hear it on a modern instrument that sort of realizing all these like powerful
Yes.
octaves, all these things that we hear in Bach's violin playing.
Yeah, I love especially because Busoni wrote this transcription with the modern instrument in mind. So it's taking something that was
Mhm.
written in the past, adapting
Yes.
it for
Yes.
the present, yet it still retains so much of its dramatic power and
Yes.
musical prowess. It's really amazing. So let's
Yes.
have a listen to this Bach Busoni. Whew, damn, that's that's fantastic. That's very dramatic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. I thank you for doing this with us and showing us the varying sounds and variety of sounds created by different instruments, the historical
Hmm.
and then the modern. I find that once I heard the modern piano, it felt so familiar because I'm a pianist, obviously. But at the same time, you do miss that little the lightness and the feathery sometimes touch of when you're playing the Schumann. So thank you again so much for
Thank
that.
you.
So before we finish up our show together, I would like to tell everybody who's watching about our upcoming season. It's just such a pleasure to be able to have Shot on the show, but this is one interview of many other different shows and interviews that we do. We do a daily musician and music show, but also we have many amazing things upcoming in our upcoming season and opportunities to perform. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, we are going to embark on auditions for the co-orchestra, which is basically a way for musicians to play concerti in worldwide orchestras. So please make sure you sign up and check us out this weekend, Friday to Monday, actually, a long weekend. And for any inquiries, please check out our website, but also at this email, info@coorchestra.com. We also have incredible shows every single day coming up. We do shows every single day. And these include a Beethoven show every Thursday and Sunday. We play a part of a documentary on Beethoven symphonies. The wonderful Larry Rapchak, as well as the team behind this New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, produced this show to ensure that Larry Rapchak has a way to show everybody what the symphonies are really all about in terms of the orchestration, the historical context, the musical context, and what inspired Beethoven. And it's fascinating. What Anna and I do is we just talk a little bit about it before and after the show to comment on the little part of the documentary, which we release every Thursday and Sunday. So please tune into that. It's really fascinating, and I've learned so much from it, even as a musician, as a pianist. And of course, we have to give a big hand to our collaborators, people who have helped us throughout this entire season. This entire season is going until at least June 2024. And these are all people who are contributing not only their time and resource, but also supporting us by providing judges, by providing opportunities for young musicians to be a part of, whether it's the Boulder Symphony, whether it is the Colburn School and their concerts, whether it's the Adelaide Oaks Music Library, iClassical Academy. These are all people who contribute so much to our season. I want to give a big hand to our team, people who are part of our team at the Virtual Concert Halls, and these are people, we're going to rack up even more names than that. We have to update this list because we have incredible people who are joining us and being a part of our show, and we produce shows every single day, and these people are all musicians who also do video editing, social media management, hosting, coming up with scripts, and making sure shows like this run beautifully and smoothly. So as we interview people like Charlotte, this is happening. And don't forget, we stream onto pretty much every single social media site out there, and this includes LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram is actually having us now too, and we are on every platform that exists so that we can provide you quality content. And speaking of quality content, I want to give a big hand to everybody for joining us, and especially my guest, Charlotte, for joining us. This is so cool that we got to talk about all these things. We have so much material to cover, so I definitely am going to have you back for part 2. We will talk about Schubert's pedals and his markings, and I remember that you have these amazing graphs of how often he used forte, how often he used mezzo piano and pianissimo, etc. So please come back to our show. And with that, thank you once again. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you everybody for joining and watching us. And with that, we'll say bye to everybody. See you all next time.
Bye.